Yes.
Thank you.
What is going on here?
Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, NMRA.
And Pat, if you could spotlight me. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate it. Hope you join us again soon, and tell your friends about us so that they can also participate in our show. I want to turn now to Father Ron Walters for the prayer for the show. Father Walters?
Creator of the world, as modelers and makers, we recognize the intricacy and beauty of our world. We thank you for the vision and the artistry you have given us. Continue to bless us with your creative spirit. Amen.
Father Walters, thank you so very much. We sure appreciate all that you do for our show, and can't thank you enough for being here this evening. Now I'd like to talk to you a minute about the show for tomorrow night, Modeling Lifestyle. Mike Tylick, NMRA, is our guest, and I really think you're going to enjoy meeting Mike and seeing his modeling and meeting some of his friends. It's going to be something I think that you don't want to miss if you can help it. You can only see it. It's not on Zoom. It's only available on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. Starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and once you've subscribed, hit the bell, then you will be notified about 30 minutes before the show is to start by YouTube. And we really think that if at all possible, you should join us live. It's a fun kind of show because it's an opportunity to meet modelers that are really talented in their field. They really know what they're doing. They really want to help other people. And they want, I guess, their lifetime achievements recorded. Wouldn't it have been great if we had done this with John Allen and some of the other greats of the past? But we didn't. Well, we're trying to now, best we can, and hope that you'll join us and participate with us and try to draw out these great modelers and have them explain to us how they learned their skills, who taught them the skills, what they're planning for the future, and what they've accomplished so far in their lifetime. So it's 7 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night, and I've got a short video I'd like for you to see about the show.
Join the modeling lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on February 2nd, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of Mike Tylick. Mike is a well-known and prolific modeler and author.
It's on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, 7 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow evening. We've got some great build-alongs coming up for you. All of them are posted on our website, newtracksmodeling.com. And you can find out if you go to the website, the amount of the discount the various model manufacturers have provided. If you want to buy one of their kits that they're going to build for you on our shows. And it gives you the information that you need in order to get that discount. The code word that you have to use, the dates that it starts and stops the discount and so forth. And all of that information is on our website. But the ones that we've got coming up are Atlantis models, and that's an O-scale model. Rockin' Farm Toys, that's an S-scale model. Rail Tales Hobby Shop is going to show you a water making method with their products. Touch Toggles is going to show you some very unique ways of using their product. Inkscape, that Father Ron Walters is going to show us, is from what I've been told, something that even I may be able to handle to be able to develop a CAD capability. So far, I haven't been able to get there, but Inkscape, I'm told by Father Walters, may be the answer to my problem. Tom York. Tom, he was one of our guests on Modeling Lifestyles. He's had a fantastic career. He's a real gentleman, a fantastic modeler and manufacturer for so many years, and he's produced so many products. Well, we coached him out of retirement a little bit, and he's designed and produced a kit. Only 25 of them are going to be produced. It's an O-scale kit. And Tom is going to build it on our show in the 15-minute segments till it's finished. There's 25 of them that he's making available. And the total cost, including shipping, delivered to your front door, is $40 for an O-scale kit. So if you're in O-scale and you want to try to build a Craftsman kit, I don't think you can do much better than that from one of the real achievers in the O-scale market for many, many years. And I just can't thank Tom enough for being willing to do that for us. Later this year, probably in the August-September timeframe, Dennis Brennan, who is a manufacturer of Brennan's models, Dennis produces kits of Frank Ellison's models. Some of you may not know who Frank Ellison was. From about 1934, 33, until the mid-50s, about 56, 58, somewhere in through there, he was the face of model railroading. He was on almost all the Lionel advertising. He was a prolific author. You saw photos of his model railroad all over. And it was an inspiration to a lot of us, because a lot of us back in that day, we were Lionel kids. That's all we knew. We went to the department stores. We couldn't wait each year for the annual catalog that Lionel produced. We were Lionel guys. And here was a guy that also was a Lionel guy, but his layout was fantastic. It was a scale layout. It didn't have the accessories that Lionel produced. It was a scale layout, and it just would knock your socks off. And he really helped the hobby so much. Frank is the reason that we decided to start our Thursday shows, Modeling Lifestyle, because unfortunately we don't have videos of Frank Ellison or John Allen or the other greats in our hobby. And that's what we're trying to capture now. Because to me, I'd give almost anything to have been able to, back in those days, be able to come on something like a Zoom or something like a YouTube and be able to meet those kind of modelers and ask them questions and have them answer how they learned and what they would suggest that I do to start hopefully becoming the modelers that they were. And that would have meant a tremendous amount to me. And that was the impetus for the rationale to start the Modeling Lifestyle show. Well, Dennis produces the kits from the models that Frank built and had on his layout. Well, Dennis is going to produce a kit, and he's going to come on our show and he's going to build it for us, one step at a time. And that to me is going to be something that I just can't wait to see, because that's going to be a kit that originally was designed and built by one of the real greats in our hobby. So that's the build alongs we've got coming up. My build, our next My Build is February the 15th. Chris Course is having dinner with his father tonight. We don't want to interrupt that. That's the reason that he's not here and can't tell you about the upcoming build along. My Build. But the My Build is something that's really special to me because it provides an incentive, I believe, for all of us to see what each other are building, and maybe give us inspiration to try something that we've always wanted to, but we just never have done, or maybe try a technique that we see that we've never tried before. So it's extremely important to me that everybody that can kind of show us what you're working on, how you're building it. Whether it's finished or not doesn't make any difference. What matters is that you're willing to talk to us about it and show it to us. That's where the inspiration for all of us comes from. Just being able to see and hear what somebody else is doing can really make a big difference in how other modelers react to our hobby. So I really hope that you'll participate. And if you're building something or have already finished something, we would love to see it. Pat, I think that you have Chris's email address, and you could put that in the chat for me. If you have any information or want any information about the My Build, Chris Course is the one to contact, and he'll get back to you and answer whatever question that you have about it. Next, I want to thank Martin Breckbilt, MMR. Martin is the editor of O-Scale Trains magazine, published by White River. And Martin has been very gracious to include New Tracks and the programs that New Tracks offers each week in his magazine. And Martin, I really do appreciate it, and thank you so much for doing that, as well as your participation in building some of the build-alongs and some of the Watch Me Build segments of our shows. Thank you so much. I do want to talk about the scholarship, but I want to wait toward the end of the show to do it because I want to get a lot of feedback from you. We were at the Amherst show last weekend. We're going to be at Timonium this weekend. And I'd like to be able to talk to you a little bit about our experience at Amherst and hear what yours may have been and talk to you a little bit about it, but toward the end of the show, not right now. Right now, I want to introduce you to Philip Cruz. Philip owns a company called Miniatures by Philip, and he is a great modeler, and I think you can learn a lot from him. So Philip, welcome. Pat, is Philip not here yet?
Just a minute.
Hi, Philip.
Yes. Let me unmute it.
I'm trying to get it.
Huh.
I'm trying to get it.
All right. I keep losing the
Video?
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, and I can see you now.
Okay, good. Yeah, my friend is about to do the camera work. I had a hectic day and I got tied up and I didn't get much done about what I was going to show tonight. I think Phil was going to show some of the barn pictures that I sent. I didn't have but about 3 that he said we might comment on. We can do that at any time. But basically tonight, I was just going to...
Well, before you start, why don't we do it? Pat, can we show those 3 or 4 pictures about the barn?
Yes, because that was what I started last
Yeah.
week. Okay. That's where I had the rafters up.
Right.
And as I said, I lapped over the side. The reason we put built the siding on the sides first. And then it goes from there, to the slats. just little thin pieces of wood scrap wood that I have and slice down. And after that, they show it from a different angle, the front. And we were framing that part out last week, and I think I showed how the doors are cut. And it turned out to be a pretty nice little barn. I think the next picture,
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I meant to crop it a little bit closer, but I thought I just chose the wrong picture is what it was.
Is that a ladder on the front of the front door on the right side?
Yeah, and there's a ledge underneath
The window.
would walk across there. People just like the little extras. I made a little crosscut saw hung over to the right side. Got bales of hay, which I just take a piece of wood and just cut it down to, let me see if I've got something here. I don't want to, here, Robert, you want to handle the camera? I guess.
Can't get to.
Okay. I just normally will get, I hope I don't hurt it. This is a lot thinner than what I would normally use, but basically, I would just cut that down a little bit both ways, and I just run it against.
Can't see it, Philip. There it is.
Okay.
Yep.
I would run it against the blade as it's running, and then I will do some at that angle, but normally it would be thicker. And then I would cut it down right through there. And I do the sides that's going to be on the outside. As I stack them up, the only thing you'll see are the outside and the fronts. So by cutting into the piece of wood, the color it is and everything, it makes a pretty good hay bale. And so be sure I got it where you see. As what I was working on today,
We can't see. We can see you, but we can't see anything you're working on.
Okay. Robert my friend's trying to get on with his camera. Robert, you may have to use mine.
Okay.
Well, let me see if you can tell what you're viewing.
We'll turn the camera around.
Yeah, you got your, Okay, he's gonna change it around maybe, that way I won't have to be on the camera. Okay. I just took some dowel rods and was making a bridge base, very simple. Just drill down a little ways, nail your dowel in, and then I covered it with the cement that I had showed you about, the repair cement. Now tomorrow, once this dries, it will have the consistency and the color of the cement pillows and things like that. Now you can wet it at this point and smooth it down, or tomorrow
Philip,
okay.
How did you, you used wooden dowels?
Yes.
Did you paint them or just put glue on? How did you change them from wood to the concrete?
Okay. I basically just mixed the concrete. I just basically poured it over it. All you got to do is cover it, even right here where it's drying. There's just enough on there.
Yeah.
That this is drying very quick, giving you indication of the color. And so sometimes I brush it on. If you got a thick brush that will hold the concrete, it's easy to brush on. And I was in a hurry, so I poured it on and kind of just spread it out with my fingers. And
the concrete that you're talking about is actual concrete that's very thin, or what is it?
It is. It's a concrete patcher and resurfacer. It's the only one. Now, Lowe's don't carry this. The only place I find is either online or Ace Hardware. Lowe's carries some what they call concrete patcher and resurfacer, and I think they have some made by Dow also. I'm not sure about that, but it has too much sand in it. It doesn't allow you to work. It's just too gritty, and it just doesn't do as good as that there.
how thin do you make it? How is it 1 part to 2 parts water, or how do you mix it?
No, it's already mixed. All you do is add water. I have a little container. Well, here it is behind me. Excuse me. I just cut off a deodorant, not a deodorant, a detergent bottle. And you see where I mixed it in there. I just pour enough water to maybe cover the bottom. It don't take as much as you think. You will end up, and I pour the water first because pour the concrete on it. That way the bottom kind of is already wet. It makes it a little easier to stir. And this is some leftover right here. And I actually could wet that right now and even reuse this. It's been so soon. But this will look exactly like the concrete pillars tomorrow once it dries. As you start to see, this is thin and may not have the feel of it on this side because you need to pour one side at a time.
Yeah.
And then I was working on, I have on my grandson's train, I have a bridge that I had made like this. I started to take it off of his set, but it's going to be kind of involved. But anyway, between the 2 trusses, I just built 2 sides. And then, of course, I would run some cross beams, both at the bottom and the top. And then I would, of course, on the bottom, I had the wooden slats going this way, which was just whatever wood I wanted to use. It's kind of be a thicker wood. And on the top, I would use the same thing, but I did a cross pattern, X pattern, and just simply cut little notches about halfway. I'd have a piece going across and then an X piece across. And it really turns out to be a pretty nice looking bridge. There are a lot better bridges. As I said in the beginning, one of the things I try to do, I try to do things that you can build quick. Most of the stuff that I build and sell just off of my site, I generally try to get it where I can build within 4 or 5 hours, like the general stores, the cabins, and things like that. Now, when I do a custom build from photographs, it's a whole different ballgame. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. I can sell my country stores for $79, but a custom build of a house may be $250 or on up because it's just the fact that I have built probably 1,000 country stores in my life. And the custom job, I've never attempted to build before. And you have to walk your way through it. You've got to plan it out. And it don't always come out a wall or something like you would like it to. Then you got to back up. And that's the thing that I work with. Now, I do have, well, I should have brought some, I've had some out. Now, here's another little thing that I pulled off of my grandson's set today, which is very easy to make. It's very dusty, but just some PVC pipe that you
We lost you. Philip, I can't hear.
holes in the siding. As you remember in the first show, I showed how to make the siding. And you got a simple little granary or whatever, put you some checkered boards on it, and it looks very good for something you can build in 3 or 4 hours. And I think I have already started to show the gas pumps, basically how I do those. My shop is in a mess this week, but basically I have just mounted what I printed out of my printer. I'm going to cover that upper part. And normally I would have a piece that had regular up here. And this is a piece of PVC that I just took my Dremel a bit, something like that. And that one's about burned up. And I would just lay it down and I would just go through it. And I generally just pull the piece away and hold the Dremel, and I'll do it again. And then maybe I'll just hold the Dremel up and use it to come down. But once I get a rough opening, I go into the inside and I just very lightly run it around the edges. And then when you put it over, this one is dirty. As I said, I'm totally unprepared today. You have a pretty nice looking little gas station. I use I have a lot of speaker wire. I mean, I got tons of it. And what I normally do, I'll drill this hole right down in there, and I'll just take some baling wires, we call it, and I'll wrap it around the end of a needle nose pliers, and what's sticking out, I'll bend, and you can put that right down in there. And then this, you can glue right in, push it in and glue it into there. And then you've got your a pretty simply made gas pump. And you can make it any brand that you want, of course, because when you go online now, what I find is the gas pumps are named after automobiles, Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, Ford, or whatever, rather than Shell and Texaco. And of course, I may be looking at the wrong place. But this way, I can just print out on my inkjet and cut around it, use a little silicone glue, push it down real hard, and then let it seat, and it'll look just like a regular a logo. I have some logos up here, I think, yeah, that I'm fixing to put on something that I printed out on some photo paper. And if I was putting this on something else, I would mount it on a piece of that metal sheathing that I use like for the roof of the buildings. And I have one other little thing here that started out with is very dirty, but look, for the smaller scale, you can take a drill and just simply make you 2 holes, put it on your scroll saw and square it out, make you a little door, put it on your scroll saw or bandsaw and notch in like for the wood. Now this one needs painting. 2 little short pieces, fit the piece in there in the ceiling, and you got a nice little country store. You print you out some logos from there on your photo paper and just cut them out and paste them on there, here, whatever. And very simple for your real small scale, just something you can do a little over an hour probably.
Philip, can you give us a close-up of your pump, please? The pump?
Oh, pump, okay.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this, I don't have it glued on, of course. I had had some more and I ended up having to use them this week. The ones I planned on showing. I apologize. I'm totally unprepared this week. Got hung up on some things today in town that took so much longer.
Don't apologize, Philip. What you're doing is exactly what I remember learning it from. The kind of things that you're doing, absolutely I've done. No question about it. It never crossed my mind that anybody else would ever do something like that. And
well,
then
my dad grew up in the Depression, and most of the people around here did. And if you grew up in the country, when I was a child, they didn't run to town for everything. You learned to make your own stuff and to improvise and just be creative. And I think that's the fun of it. I have a challenge right now that I've never done before. There's a barn built in 1916 up in, I believe, Iowa or northern Missouri, totally round, made out of clay tile of all things. And it has more dormers on that thing than you can count. So it's a challenge. I may have it done by next week. I don't know.
well,
I'll be a far along on it.
Well, I'd love to see it when you get it built, Philip. And thank you so much for for sharing how you build things. I really do appreciate your time.
I'll try to be more prepared next week.
No problem. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Philip.
Thank you.
All right. Well, next I want to turn to Bill Banner of Banner Model Works
Why we were so late?
for his build along. And Bill, welcome.
Thank you. Right. Well, I'm probably unprepared too, because I've been throwing things together in the last few minutes. But here we go.
Well, listen, I got a question before you start, and I meant to ask you last week, and it skipped my mind. How many of those shays are you going to build as kits?
As kits,
Yeah.
they're not going to be kits. You got to buy it complete, and I've got enough castings for 3 locomotives.
I'll be darned.
So we'll see how it goes with the first one, get it under steam this summer, and test it on the track and go from there. But as I've gone through building this one, I've been making parts for 3 engines. So we'll see.
It's going to be impressive. I can't wait to see it once you
Yeah,
got
neither can I. Looking forward to seeing it on the track.
it.
And you mentioned being at the Amherst Railway
Right.
train show this weekend. We were down there too, and tell you, I haven't seen a show like that there in at least 10 years. I've been going down there since '98.
Yep.
So it was really good. Made up for some past years that were really slow. So there you go.
I heard the vendors were doing great.
Everybody I talked to had a smile on their face, including myself. So,
Yeah.
and it's not been that way in some time.
Well, that's great news.
So anyways, off to the build. Well, here you go. I finished it. And not really, just kidding. That's the finished model, what we're striving to do. And last week I left you with basically the inner shell, which is MDF board. And I put the siding on, I stained it a grimy black. And tonight we're going to do the front and the inner bit inside the doorway here. So I've already put one of the pieces on the inside. It's this piece here. And so we'll put this one in, and then we'll put the door frame in and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot the back of this with some of my Super 77. And I'm just shooting into my trash barrel. It's got a liner in it. Usually I use my paint booth to do this, but since my camera's got not long enough lead on it, and I really didn't like the way the iPhone came out last week, we're going to do it in here. By the way, I don't recommend it doing it in your trash can in the office. It gets everything all sticky. Okay, you didn't see me drop that one in. Maybe one of these days I'll get the camera on the left-hand side and see better. Well, there you go. That's that. And we'll take this piece here. I'm going to cut this section out. And I'm using a X-Acto chisel blade. And it seems to work really well. Pushing it into these tabs that hold the piece on the bigger sheet. I've used a simple razor blade in the past. You know, generally nobody's watching, so I use whatever I can pick up at the time. And then sand off the nubs. And I'll give it a test fit here. See how it's going to do. Looks pretty good. And I want this to be flush at the sides of this piece and flush right in here with that. Okay, so another shot of glue. Now we'll put the outer trim on. We're going to have these pieces here, and these go inside. And I'm pretty sure the instructions call for installing these inside pieces first. But hey, who reads instructions, right? So I'm going to test fit this piece in here. And I'm going to say, right, put those other side pieces in first. Which way do they go? Yeah, that's it. And this inner piece actually fits behind the outer piece. That's why you're supposed to put them in first. It's not that terribly critical, but you know. And I'm just running the end of my tweezer up and down here just to press it against the wall there. And we'll add the door trim. Just takes a little coaxing to get it to settle into place. There we go. Let's get that interior bit. Now further up, this piece should have been painted, but we're going to leave it unpainted this time for this model. I'm going to add a bead of glue across here. set this sill in place. I'll take the upper wall and just set it in place for a moment, just to get everything pressed down, make sure it's going to fit. And then we'll take this wall, put a good coating of glue on the back. Get it in place. And then to finish up the front, we're going to add the corner bits. And this is some 4x4 stock, comes with a kit. So I'm going to take it, lay it right in here like this, up to that ledge, test it. I like it, so I'm going to cut it a little bit long. Cut one for the other side. Sand the end square. Get the corner in. Clean up any glue. I always cut them long because if I don't, I'll cut them too short. Cut them long enough, then they can trim off afterwards. So while it's sitting there, we'll let that sit up like that. We'll take another one of these. I'm going to lay it in here. And same thing. Okay. And I think what we'll do is let it go there. And we'll get more going on it next week. And I think finish it off the week after, yeah?
Sounds
Yeah.
like a winner.
All right.
Sound-
Bill?
Go ahead.
How forgiving is the 77 spray? I mean, if you can you move things around at all before, if you have to, or anything like that? Or once you stick it there, it's done?
No, you've got a little bit of time to move it around. I usually put enough glue on there to where it's going to hold it well, but it's still wet enough to move stuff around. The instructions say you should spray both walls to do that, but I just do the one because, yeah, it's just easier. And
Yeah.
you know, at times you don't get enough glue on to begin with. It might lift off in 6 or 12 months. My models tend to travel quite a bit, well, twice a year, and I'll get some lifting out over that period of time, but generally I just go back and glue it back on. But it really holds pretty well.
What kind of glue's in that syringe thing of yours?
This is Pipe Bond 2.
Okay.
And I
Do
get
you
these,
thin it at all?
no. No, this is just straight out of the bottle. And I get the syringe right off eBay. I think they're $1 a piece or $2, something like that.
When you use when you were spraying the glue, are you like, when you go down over the edge of the workbench, are you spraying into a wastebasket or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, out in the shop, I've got a paint booth that I use just because it's right there, right next to the building area. But generally, I'll use a trash can or get a box or something to spray into.
Yeah, I think it would gum up your spray booth, wouldn't it?
No, because the fan I've got on it pulls everything out.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
at the front of the spray booth, there's a turntable,
Mm-hmm.
and it does get gummed up,
Mhm.
but then I'll spray it with paint and it dries. It's a very thick mess.
Yep.
Anybody else have questions for Bill?
Well, is the model still available, discounted?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. The best way to get it with a discount is to email me and I'll send you a PayPal invoice with a discount on it, rather than trying to get the website to do what we want it to do. It's just easier to send me the email.
Great.
We'll take
Thank you,
care of
Bill.
it. You're
Thanks a
welcome.
lot.
Yep.
And Bill, I really appreciate you providing a discount to people that want to build this model along with you. I can't thank you enough for wanting to do that, and hopefully getting modelers to build something that they haven't built before.
Yeah, no, that's good. We're happy to do it. So,
Okay, moving right along. Next up is Bob Davidson with his workshop tips, tools, and techniques. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to share my screen. And let's play. So, welcome to Workshop Tips and Tricks. This week, well, again, I'm an old scenic designer, lighting designer, stuff like that. Tonight's episode is measuring up rulers, scales, and squares. A lot of this is going to be applicable to if you're doing bench work or, bigger things in your workshop, but there's enough that's related strictly to model building, I think. So first, we're going to look at rulers, and really there's two kinds that we use. We use tape measures. This is a standard tape measure. I love Harbor Freight because they used to give things away for free, and we all know how we all feel about free. One thing with a tape measure to be aware of is the end, the little piece on the end. Those are riveted in and they move. They're designed to move because the thickness of the hook, whether you're hooking it over the end of a board or sticking it inside a dimension, the hook will move. And frankly, it's not terribly accurate on any tape measure. So my word of advice is if you're doing any critical measuring with a tape measure like this, is I usually add 2 inches and I start at 2 inches and we'll hold it down along the length of the cut, and then I'll add 2 inches to my dimension at the other end, and that's where I'll make the mark. So just to, when you're getting into some of these are off 1/16 of an inch or more. So just be careful. In the old days, we used these folding rules. I still use them. They're kind of neat, and they don't fall off of things when you're trying to stretch them out. They're limited to most of them. You can get a 6-foot rule. But what's neat about these is this little end thing, the sliding extension. What's great with those, you can use it to measure depth of something if you have a recess that you need to measure. They're also really good if you need to set depth on a router or a table saw or saw blade. So that's why those are helpful to have around, or this type of ruler. And then obviously just your flat metal rules. I showed the front and the back of this one. It's nice if you do get a metal rule or even a plastic rule, put a piece of cork on the back of it so it doesn't scratch stuff up. When you're looking at a rule, you get what you pay for. You want to try to find something that's engraved, that's not just printed, because typically they'll be that much more accurate. So spend a little, you don't have to spend a lot, but spend a little bit more. So scales, we all have these scales here. This is the one I think from Micromark, and I know Walters has one. There's a bunch of different brands. They're pretty much all the same. And these typically are indeed etched. So you can, but it's tough, getting down in that 3 inches on HO scale or any inches on N gauge. So, but they're very helpful in terms of figuring out spacing, things like that. So we should all have them. I'm going to just take a little sidebar here on perceived scale versus real scale. This is a great chart, and I'll put the link for this up in the chat tonight. This is the Mount Albert scale lumber basswood reference chart, and this is just one page. There are 6 pages overall in this, and what's really great about it is it shows the actual size and then all the different scales, what those sizes will represent. So even here, if you look at, for argument's sake, an HO scale, a 2x4, its actual dimension is 23 thousandths by 46 thousandths. And that's not even nominal. That's true 2-inch by 4-inch, which you don't build. And my point here is that a lot of times that to build in real scale, it's not going to look real. It's going to be too small. People will not be able to understand what it is that you're doing. So here's the link, and again, I'll put this in the chat when I'm done tonight. So here's just some examples: a nominal 2x4. I actually use 3x8s when I build. They just look, to the eye, they look better. And just some other interesting things like a 3-tab shingle exposure. 3-tab shingles in HO scale are 1/16 of an inch showing, just over 1/16 of an inch. 5/64 for a stair rise. Metal hand railings, which are typically done at 1.5 inch, 1.25 pipe, which is like 1.6 inches outside diameter. It's a 1/64 of an inch. So really you'd be using wire. When I do handrails and stuff like that, I tend to use 032, which is a 32nd or close to it. So again, just it's a visual reference. And then finally, think about this. If you're using a 0.5 millimeter pencil, which we all think, a drafting pencil or whatever, to mark stuff, it's actually 1 inch wide in O scale and 3¼ inches wide in N scale. So that's why a lot of carpenters actually use knives. They don't use pencils. So I a lot of times I'll use a scalpel actually to mark stuff when I want to cut. So just things to keep in mind. Squares, there's lots of different squares out there. Drywall squares are great if you're doing bench work. You're cutting large pieces. You can pick these up, usually cheap or at surplus places or whatever. It's good to have it have it around the shop, cutting sheet goods, whatever. The leg on the left there is actually behind the rule, so it hangs over the edge, so you can use it to square things up and stuff like that. It's just a good purchase to have in your shop. Framing squares are I built scenery for years just using a framing square and a tape measure. If you've ever wondered what all the numbers are on a framing square, well, that's all there so you can do rafters, hip valley rafters, all, jack rafters, all that stuff. So most of the time, a lot of framing squares now won't even have those on them, but this is a roofer square, and you can see you have a tongue on the right, and that's typically 1.5 inches wide, and then the actual blade is 2 inches wide, so that's also good just for having a couple of dimensions you can just trace out. Speed squares are great. They're cheap. Use them to cut 2x and 1x. If you're doing framing work, you can see that on the left side of this picture, there's a leg that actually can hook over the edge of the wood, and then you use the other one of the other faces to cut either a 90-degree cut or a 45-degree cut. This is a speed, what specifically called the speed square. You can see you can figure out angles, and the angles are all based around this little notch that's up in here. So if you were to put this at a point and then take a line down here, that would be a 70-degree angle. So they're really useful to have around. And again, very inexpensive. Tri-squares, and that's how you spell it, because you use tri-squares to try and see if your wood is square. Again, with any of these, you can buy cheap or you can buy decent. What you want to do to test any square is to lay it on a surface. Again, you'll overhang the edge of the surface, scribe a line, and then flip it over and scribe the line again and see if you get the same line. And that's how you know if your square is square. So you really want to do that with any of these squares. This is a wooden handled one, they're pretty typical. This is a neat little square that I actually found and I use quite a bit. What's neat about it, a couple things. One, it has a little tab at the end here, so it keeps it from falling off of the wood if you're going along a piece of wood, if you want to scribe a line. And then it has these holes in it, which you can use to score lines at different distances off of your reference point. And also you can use it to set angles. You can see up here, there's all kinds of angles, 45, 30, 22.5. And again, that's all off of this point down here at the end of the handle. Double squares, you can find these all over. I really love using these. I have these are mine. I have a 4-inch and a 6-inch double square. It's kind of like a combination square, but without all the bulk. And again, you can slide these so that you can set depths on things, or you can use it to scribe lines. If you want to inset a line a 1/2 inch, even on a curve, you can use these because the body overlaps so you can get to the center of the blade. Machinist squares, I use these for cutting. I won't cut on these squares because these are engraved, but I'll use these. This is what I'll do my cutting on if I'm cutting styrene sheet or something. And again, there's all different sizes of those that are available. These are cool little things. And again, if you're scribing, need to scribe distances. This is the Incra one. This is a little more expensive than this one here. This is one I found on Amazon. But you can see there's all these holes punched, and this has actually 60 or 1/32 spacing. So you can set different if you need to scribe lines that are parallel. Really good to have around and pretty inexpensive, really. Old-fashioned combination square. So you're using these, you slide this a 12-inch blade. You can just pull this off of the blade and just use the head to set a 90-degree angle or a 45-degree angle. The full kits used to come with a center finder as well as a protractor, so you could set angles into it. And here's a little one that I have out in the shop, in my garage shop. So I use this a lot, and they all have this little scribing pin. Most of them have a scribing pin on it you can pull out and use to mark wood. So that's kind of squares and that. This tool of the week this week, and other people have talked about these, 1, 2, 3 blocks. Great just to use them as weights. I use them over on my mill to set up stuff. They're great for jigging stuff. One of the things that I never saw till recently is, oh yeah, well, you can get them either metric or SAE. SAE, they're 3/8 by 16 threads, so you can use them to make up, hold downs and things like that. This is something I found. This is a kit from Taylor Toolworks I had never seen. These are block attachments. So if you have a couple of blocks, you can use these little gizmos and hold them together to make up little jigs, either 90-degree jigs or offset jigs, or if you want to do some bending or something like that, or heat forming. Just really kind of neat. And we'll get back to the Taylor thing in a second here. So that's the tool of the week. You can pick them up for about 20 bucks a set. So just something to have. And like I say, it beats stealing the hand weights from my wife's gym area in the basement. So tonight's website, speaking of Taylor Tools, here's Taylor Tools. And this is where you can find a lot of these. The reason I want to point this out though, is under the tools tab, and they have some really neat stuff for carpentry and other machining stuff, but they sell blemished and cosmetic seconds. So you can find some really good quality squares, rulers and things like that, but they're blems. So they'll have a finished defect or something. They're from what I've heard from them, they don't compromise in terms of how they're etched or anything like that. But so it's taytools.com. And it's just a really neat site to kind of poke around. They've got a lot of neat stuff on there. So that's kind of it. Next week, we're going to look at toolbox essentials, some useful and some weird tools that I have around that I found that I use when I'm working around the shop. So back to you, Jim. I'll stop sharing.
Anybody have any questions for Bob? Well, Bob, I'm really impressed. The one that I liked the most was, I think you called it the Tri-Square.
Yeah.
I just love the name.
Well, I always thought it was a tri-square, TRI, because you could use it 3 different ways, but really I actually looked it up. It's TRY, tri-square, because you try to see if things are square.
I'll be damned.
There you go.
Thanks so much.
And I'll put that link up for that lumber chart, because that really is very, very helpful to do conversions for just about anything on the layout. So I'll get that up right away.
That's great. Thanks so much, Bob.
Thank you.
Really. Well, now let's turn to Bill Davis for his build along. And I think Bill, this finishes your build along.
Yes, sir. This will be the last one.
Okay.
All right, so let's go to screen share here. And we're gonna go to the desktop. Maybe. Okay. And
I really appreciate you doing this because this has really turned out to be a really unusual but yet a beautiful structure.
yeah, it is. It's been a very, very fun project to do. Let's see now. I want to full screen this, which is right here. There we go. Okay, so we had a little misadventure last time, so I'm going to do a little wrap up from last time before I start this time. So anyway, this is the house as it stands, I believe, today. It's been totally restored from what I understand. I don't know about inside, but exterior wise, it's actually also been painted as well. So it's kind of a yellow color now, from what I understand. So we were talking about doing this walkway. This walkway is provided in the kit as a laser cut piece, but I decided I wanted it to be longer and I wanted it to be rougher. And so I built individual pieces of wood, and I used the basic frame part underneath that he provided, but I built my own individual boards top here. And the original port was only about this long here, but well, okay. It was only about to this point here, but it actually goes back this far on the prototype. So I decided to keep that kind of a design going here. So this is what our model looks like at this point. And so now we're going to start on to what we're going to do with it tonight. So this is the walkway, and as you see, the house is yellow, and this is what the walkway they provided when they rebuilt the house. I had thought about building this railing like this, but however, there was a lot of holes to drill to put that many pieces of doweling in to make a railing, and I discovered in my collection of parts that Grantline had a really neat railing set that they made, and I decided to use that on my my model. So that's what I did, and there it is. I think I had a lot more personality than that railing they had there, and it's kind of Victorian looking, and this house is kind of Victorian looking, so it kind of appealed to me. These are individual pieces, the sections. And I just cut them to the size I needed to make it fit the area that I was planning to have a railing on. So now, ground cover. I mixed my own dirt for this. This first pile here is decomposed granite, which I sifted down to just the fine powder from it. This is some red colored dirt that I found in San Diego when I was in the mountains of San Diego, probably 35 years ago. This is some tan colored dirt that a friend of mine picked up when he was in Central City, Colorado. And this is just good old silica sand. And I blended all those together and created this dirt, which, I don't know, had a little more personality than just straight decomposed granite, which I've used a lot in the past. I used a sifter from the kitchen type of thing that I've had for years, and just sifted things down until I got all the rocks and chunks and stuff out here. You can see that this is unsifted here. You can see there's big pieces in here. All that got sifted out. Same thing with this. All this got sifted out to just the fine powder, and you end up with this. And this is what it looks like on the model. I added some pebbles and stuff around in the dirt and stuff, and of course, just threw some greenery around in the area here. The prototype house had a lot of pretty good sized weeds around it, some pretty large rocks and things, but I decided not to go quite that way. I may go in later on and add some tall grass and some other things around the building. But for right now, I just want to get some ground cover on it so that it looked finished. Now, interior detailing. I haven't put the interior detailing pieces in there. These are dollhouse pieces that I've had for probably 35 years, waiting for something to put them on. And I think I found it. They're just cheap plastic pieces, and so with some nice painting on them and stuff like this, I think they'll look just fine inside the building. I need to find some more pieces like a couch and things to put in the living room area, and maybe some more beds, some other furniture. But eventually I will put a full interior in there, and when I do that, I will put that in the my build. Now, lighting. My good buddy Jim Murphy is my lighting expert, and so he showed me how he did the lighting for this building here. So it took some planning to detail the interior in the future. Lighting must be removable and inobstructive. So he designed it so it could be removed. Any external power source must work. DC, DCC, line L 16 volt, 9 volt DC, regardless of polarity. He used Pico LED lights, warm white. You can get these LED lights in a lot of different colors and luminums, and so that's the size that he used for this. And he used a universal power connector system, homemade. And I think he shows that next one. No, okay. So this is the universal power connection. It's actually run with a 9 volt battery. There is a resistor and there is a voltage regulator. And this sets up here, this voltage regulator presses down to 3.3 volts. And then no matter what kind of power you use to power it, it'll only get 3.3 volts to your bulbs. And you won't have any problem with blowing bulbs out.
Yeah, quick connection. That's a rectifier, which changes AC to DC.
There you go. Thank you, Jim. Anyway, and so this is the light bars that he made up here. He basically used crossbars and like same way we do people do PC ties, and soldered on. What size wire is that, Jim?
It's 032 phosphor bronze.
Right, in there. And then of course the lights were soldered on as well. And this is what it looks like laying on top of the second story of the building. Now, it is important to keep track of the polarity, and Jim, Jim put the thing and had to make quick disconnects in the building, and I was taking some night shots, so I pulled the wires into the building here and accidentally disconnected them. And so I reconnected them again, and I thought, oh no, I blew the lights out on the first floor before I realized that if I reversed the plug and plug it in properly, lights would light. So you got to make sure you get the right polarity set up. And what Jim did is he put a little white mark on the plug on both sides there, so you know to put the whites to white and the black to black. So this is the whole setup here that Jim does. You want to talk about this, Jim?
Sure. On the left-hand side, we have the rectifier, and if you're looking real close on the ends, it's got little like a tilde, a wave sign, so you can put any polarity in there or AC, and this magic rectifier converts it to DC. In this case, is a tiny little plus and a tiny little minus there, and the minus is the ground. So you connect one end to the plus, and that goes to the regulator. The other side goes to, which is minus, goes to both the minus on the regulator and minus to out to the world. And that's your ground for your lighting system. Here's the specs on it. That's a nice long number, but you're spending less than $2 a piece for a power supply that'll do up to 20 LEDs at 3.3 volts. So you can put the biggest Lionel transformer you've got on one end, and you get a nice gentle 3 volts for your regulator. I took that regulator. Here's another view backwards. This is your input. You go through the rectifier, you convert it to straight DC. The DC connects to a regulator. The regulator knocks it down to 3.2 volts. And this is your house outlet. It's really a pin socket. And you can just plug your LEDs directly into that. No resistors on the LEDs, just 3.2 volts. Away you go. And this one has, like a house outlet, has 2 plugs that you can use. So it's cheap and dirty.
But it works great. So
I like cheap.
me too. Free's even better.
Yeah.
So this is a little more about showing you how he put it all together here and started it all up. And here you see it with the lights lit. And so.
And again, testing. I happen to use a 9-volt battery. Polarity does not matter over here because you're on the side of the rectifier that'll convert it to DC. Once you get past here, it's all pure DC, and then you knock it to the right voltage. When you when you solder the lights, though, as I've got up in here and up in here where the lights are soldered, do make sure you've got the right polarity on the lights, because all you're going to do is just put a blob of solder on the leads. They're tiny. You don't have to strip them. And you put a drop on the positive bus bar for the positive side of the light, and the negative side of the bus bar, it's a drop of solder, and the other lead for the light, and you never have to worry about it. But do it one at a time. Test after each bulb, plug it in, put the voltage regulator on it, and make sure you got it right, because it's just real easy. The leads are microscopic, and they're easy to reverse. If you do reverse them, man, once in a while you break the lead off. So bad.
Jim, can you tell everybody how to tell a positive and a negative lead on the light?
It depends on the manufacturer, but for the most part, the Chinese, where I buy all my 0402 LEDs, for the most part, the reddish lead is plus, and the gold/silver, sort of a soft chrome look, is negative. but do check it. And again, all you have to do is take it. Remember, in quantity, these LEDs are about 4 cents a piece. So I buy them in quantities of 20, and my last order was for quantity of 100. So if you get it wrong, no big deal. If you plug it into 9 volts, the smoke comes out, you try another one. But using 3 volts, yeah, the magic smoke lives inside LEDs. If you get them completely reversed, no great loss. Just unsolder them and put it on the right leads. That's why on the lower right and in the center here where the leads are connected to the bus bar, I keep it plugged in. And each time I solder an LED, all you're doing is put a tiny blob of solder on your teeny tiny soldering iron and just press it onto the plus side and put another drop on the negative side. Don't try to wrap the lead around the wire. Doesn't gain you anything, and you're more likely to break the wire. So I just touch it to it. And then when I'm through, I trim the ends off. But by keeping the battery on, you know that you made the right connection.
And Jim's soldering iron that he uses for this is got like a pencil point, like a very sharp pencil point type of tip on it that he's using.
Hey, Jim, quick question. You said you use phosphor bronze versus brass. What is there a logic for that versus using?
Yeah, I only had phosphor bronze in that diameter, and it's just easier to bend. The only cheating I did is after I made up the harness, I just took an emery board and rubbed it over the top of the phosphor bronze just in case. And then all I did was touch the solder to it. I just took a little bit of the tarnish off. But if I'd had brass, I probably would have used that. But I just happen to have a complete set of phosphor bronze for who knows what applications, and it works fine. And you could use pure copper or whatever you have. And diameter isn't important. The only one I wanted because it was going to be stiff enough to hold everything in position. That's why I used a 30. I could have used 020 and gotten along just fine.
Yeah. And good old Tichy provides us with phosphorus bronze wire, so you know. So this is what the house looks like finished, and this is a couple night shots that I shot of it, so give you an idea. So with that, pardon me.
Where do you get the bulb?
That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Where do you get the bulb?
I got these from Amazon. They are warm white. Okay, but before the show's over, I'll put up a link to those LEDs.
That'd be great.
I know they may have gone up in price, but they're readily available in quantity. So
yeah, they might be 5 cents a bulb now.
I don't know what they are, but anyway. Okay. I'll put I'll be able to find it in a moment, and I'll put the link in the chat to the bulbs.
What I liked about it, Jim, it's such a soft white.
Yeah, they're called warm white bulbs, and if you really wanted an effort, you could even soften them more, but you'd have to add resistors, or you could use a variable power supply. That little chip that I had called the voltage regulator is also available as it's a slightly larger unit, but it's adjustable voltage. So you can go from like 6 volts, which will blow up the LEDs, all the way down to 1 volt, which they'll barely glow. So if you wanted to get down to the nitty gritty, that you could get a variable power supply from the same Chinese sources. They're all available on Amazon. The rectifiers, the voltage regulators, and the bulbs are all either DigitKey or Mouser or Amazon, which I find the handiest.
Jim, can you also paint these bulbs, like using the
Oh, yes.
translucent
Matter of
paints?
fact, on another project that Bill's done, he wanted gooseneck lights to put on the outside of his building. And because it was a very old building, I took a clear yellow paint from Tamiya. It's a transparent yellow or something like that. And I put that over the bulbs, and it just gave them just enough yellowy orange glow that it looked like something from the 1880s. You know, before incandescence, it was almost an oil lamp orange, but it was a very nice effect.
Yes, it was.
Putting a drop over this. Or you can also use slightly yellow nail polish. If you have a spousal unit available that isn't looking, you can steal her clear nail polish. Shh, don't tell her.
Okay. All right. So this is what the first floor lighting looks like in there. That's just the bar in the middle of the light. You saw how it lit the building up. That's how the first floor is done. And then this is the second floor. And these bars these things are just kind of force the light down so it doesn't shoot up too high and stuff like that. It makes it more direct into the rooms. And so with that, I believe we're done. So here's our finished model. The ground cover, the lighting and everything. The only thing missing now is the interior detailing, but this is the finished model.
It's really nice. Really, really nice.
And this is what it lit up in the daytime. This is what the night shots. And I'd like to take a minute and thank Berkshire Valley Models and Richard Duran. If you're interested in this or any other, there are many exceptional Berkshire Valley models in HO, S, and O scale. And I believe this kit is also now available in S scale. I know that Richard put one in his layout in S scale. He does an ON30 layout, and he's got scenery up to the ceiling, and he put the house almost the top of the ceiling there. So as S scale, it looks like a far off building. And this is the contact information for Berkshire Valley Models. I highly recommend anything they build or put out or do. I also want to thank Jim Murphy for all the lighting work he does and just being a great guy to hang around with. That's it, Jim.
Bill, thanks so very much. And Jim, thank you so much for the lighting expertise. That really is something to see at night, I bet. But thanks so much, Bill. I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this.
All right. Thank you.
Well, now let's go to Earl Hackett. And Earl does our CD stuff. And he hasn't gotten me to the point where I'm ready to try the CAD. But he hopes to get me there. So Earl, welcome.
Hello there. Yes, we're going to proceed along with this bunkhouse tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Fire this up. Oh, first got to share the screen, don't I? Share screen, share. Okay, now I can start it. There we are. Going to talk about component design and joining. Remember, this is the building I'm working on. This is the bunkhouse at Thurman, West Virginia. Long since taken down, but I do have the plans. And let's see. There it is. One of the things we had to do was break it down into parts. So we have 3 parts that, or 6 parts: top of the 2 roofs, 2 wall sections, and 2 foundations. If you're going to, one of the problems you have is you got to put these things together, and you have to join them, and the joints have to be pretty good quality. I had these in the wrong order. If it's a small building like this, it's a relatively simple task to put a little escutcheon up on here, a little plate up here. This guy just snap on top of it and you glue the door, the stairs on later on. Very simple to do. And this is the, as it was structured for printing. This was a mistake. This, I screwed up here on this, the way I did this. And I'll show you, you'll see what I mean later on. We'll go through, see if we can pick up where the mistake was. Okay, the interfaces that we're going to have, there are some important requirements. The joints have to be easy to conceal, small enough that they're easy to finish, or small enough that they're easy to finish. They should have some sort of mechanical alignment, and ideally, there was some way of locking the parts in position prior to applying an adhesive. And there is a learning curve to this. We finally got 6 pieces that actually work. Numerous parts that we had to scrap because they just didn't work. And this is one of the problems you're going to have. Whenever you're printing with one of these liquid printers, this is where you get the real fine detail. That you're not going to get the fine detail you want from an extrusion printer. They're very good for structural things like switch machine components or something like that, but you're not going to get the fine rivet detail. And the problem we have here is you have to put this thing down on the exposure plate, expose it, and then you have to lift it off. So in the lifting off process, all these yellow sections here have, I guess you call them supports. They call them supports anyway. And this is what they would look like. They go down and they attach to it. And this happens to be a slicer called lychee, I guess I just pronounce it slicer. And it is very good for manual supports. If you're doing a small, very intricate thing, you might want to use this. But if you just turn it loose, like I did here, it just throws stuff all over the place, and it's not very well organized. A better one that comes with the Elegoo printers is called Chitubox. And you can see here, the support points are very evenly spaced all along this edge here. And they're fairly uniformly spaced throughout the whole structure. The problem is that on that, where those supports join in, you have all these little dimples. And in between those dimples is an area which wasn't supported when it was exposed. So it's basically just a floppy piece of plastic that formed these undefined surfaces. You don't want that surface to show up anywhere you can see it because you're going to have to sand the whole stinking thing down, and that takes a lot of time. So what I did, I stood the model up like this, and all the support pieces are attached underneath the roof or cross sections or underneath the floor, places where you can't see it. You see the mistake yet? No, it was not obvious to me either. One of the things you want to do is go around and make sure that it doesn't throw in these supports like this. This thing is really doing nothing for you. It's just going to leave a dot that you're going to have to remove. So it's a whole lot easier to just go around and inspect it and just click on the thing and say delete, and it goes away. Another problem you have to consider is that the way the lights work. With the Elegoo systems, they have a series of LEDs sitting down here. They have collimators with just opaque boxes. And on top of this is a liquid crystal display, which is either opaque or clear. And the liquid crystal display is what determines what gets polymerized and what doesn't get polymerized. Now, the problem you have is that light comes in, it can come in at an angle. And as you can see, the blue area here is polymerized, and what it's doing, it's encroaching on this area that you wanted to have open. So your open areas are going to be a little bit smaller than what you expect. So you have to plan for that with adding some clearances. And what I find is Somewhere around 0.1 or 0.12 millimeters is for small parts is adequate clearance. You're going to have some error because this is a digital system. An LED is either on or off, and the LEDs are about 0.02 millimeters square. That's the size of your pixel. So you figure if you have two, if it goes the wrong way, it'll close you in. With a 0.12 or so, you're going to have enough room to get by. Now, here I'm showing this 0.1 millimeter. I have the window frame down against this edge, and that's the distance of clearance I have here. Otherwise, we might have look at here 0.06, and over on this side here it's 0.07, so that it adds up to what you're looking for. And now you're going to see the problem. Well, not yet. Yes, you do. The problem was that printing the structure upright, right side up, meant this surface here, where the lintel is going to go, was that crappy dotted, undefined surface. And it extends into this little tiny area. So this area was almost plugged up. And I had to go in there with a feather file, a feather edge file, and clean it out. And that took a long time. It may have been smarter just to print another one, but so finally on this one, I turned it upside down, and it was very easy to clean up because now you just had a flat open surface here. You just take a file in there, 3 strokes of the file, and you're ready to go. So you're always going to have some cleanup to get a good fit. But planning out where you're going to put the ugly surface can make things a whole lot easier for you. This printed this way, these windows took me all of maybe 5 minutes to clean up with a file. The other way, it took better part of a half an hour or maybe an hour. Another thing you want to think about when you're positioning stuff, a lot of times most of these things will say, do you want to automatically position? It'll position it for something or other. I'm not sure what it is that they're positioning for, but they put it in some screwy angle so that only one point is down at the bottom. So you don't really have too much of the messy surfaces are pretty much gotten rid of. But when you do that, you can see the striations here. Each one of those is a print surface. So if this thing's printed this was printed at a 15 degree angle, but even at just that slight angle, you can still see this layering effect. And if it's an area where you're not going to see, like this would be the floor of the building. You don't really much care, but if it's on the side where it's obvious, it'd be very distracting. This is the same part, but in this case, I printed it flat, and there's no layering at all. It's just one. When this thing broke off, it was one big piece. It just came off in one chunk, and that's a problem also. And I'll get to that in a little while. One of the things that you really want to do in component design, you want to somehow lock these things into position while you're gluing them up. In this case here, I just put a couple lumps sticking out of the side here. And the object was they would be encased in the stairway. So the stairway has an opening, and they slip right into it if you get the right size. May have to clean them up a little bit, but they slip in, they hold the whole business together in position while you drop in a couple drops of ACC and lock the whole thing up. Another thing you want to think about is how am I going, this would be an internal wall. And once I put this thing in there, I can't get to it with my fingers to position it. So I'm using mortise tenon. This doesn't have to be a real tight fit because it's an interior wall. You really can't see the seam. It's up in the ceiling anyhow, but you want it to be lined up while you glue it. And so the mortise just slides into this, the black mortise here slides into this green tenon, and it lines the thing up while you glue it. And these are all very easy to produce. One of the bigger problem is when you're out on the outside. outside corners, an outside corner like this, it's not an easy thing to line up. So what I've done, this black section, this is one piece. I took the back section of the wall and extended it a little bit. So this forms a pocket, a 45 degree pocket for this wall to slide into and lock itself in place. We cut this pointy part was cut off so it wouldn't go in here and foul things up. Yeah, if there's any kind of this is probably not a perfectly good corner, so you don't want to go in there. But what happens? It winds up pretty doggone well, and it's not easy. It's not hard to hide. I still need to do a little bit more cleanup. I'm not completely happy with it. This is how it looks. You really can't see this crack with the naked eye. This is about a 4x magnification. But this side here has been primed. This is the raw plastic, and it's just sitting there. It's not been assembled yet, so these lines are not quite lined up. It's just sitting on the foundation plate. But that looks like a pretty reasonable way to get things to come together and be held in place while you're gluing stuff. I did assemble the foundation frame. The whole thing is built on pilings out over the river. Well, not over the river, but over the bank that goes down to the river. So we want to put a plate in here or something to add dirt to make it look right. But I just used the washroom. The washroom has to fit over these two, and they're going to be assembled. And so before I glued it, I made sure the washroom fit on there, held it together, and then we added glue, but I made sure I didn't get glue right in this area here, so I didn't glue the washroom to the foundation prematurely. So the other thing we did for the foundation, the frame, was we took tabs underneath this one. The green one has a tab that comes down, slides underneath this bar here, and the black one or the white one has a tab that slips down and goes underneath the green bar. So these will hold this thing level while you're working on it. But you find out that the bottom side of these bars here is the ugly edge, all those little bumps and lumps. So before you can get that thing glued, you have to go down and file it down, clean it up a little bit so that these edges, this surface and this surface here, are flush. And that took all of maybe 10 minutes to get that adjusted. But once it's adjusted, it holds everything in position very nicely while you glue it. This didn't work out quite as well as I thought. I may redo the roof sections, but to get the roof sections lined up while you're assembling them, I made a little plug on one side, on the green side, and I just have the surface of it here outlined in red so you can see it. And this slips inside one of the joists and collar ties on the other section to hold this whole thing in position. But I should have made these much beefier. Maybe this is 10 foul penetration. I should have probably made it 1/8 of an inch or something like that, so you really have some structure to work with. So it holds it, but it's not real solid. I might go back and redo these and make it a much heavier junction. And one of the nice things about doing these, you may have noticed that all the windows on the structure are all empty. There's nothing there. What I do is I build the frames, the window frames, and the window sashes as separate parts, paint them, and then assemble them. The sashes will have, they'll be glazed independently and glued in with the glaze already in, so you can position them as partially open or whatever you want. But you can see here, this one is the frame for the door, and the door is and the whole thing just inserted in there and glue dropped on the back, and the whole thing sits on the frame here. This is what they call the filter house. Apparently, they're just pulling water out of the ground and not exactly clean water, so they kind of throw a filter before they fed it to the engineers and firemen and such. But eventually, the steps will go on here, and I'm not sure where the ground is going to be here, so the steps are a little longer than probably necessary. Now, the thing with these printing materials, and I'm going to have to go into this in some detail later on. When you go to paint them, any of the solvent paints, like I've tried old Floquil, Scale Coat, True Color, they all work fine. These are painted in Scale Coat concrete. But these colors here, these three grays. This is actually is a gray, very light gray, but it is a gray. These are all custom colors, and they're latex, acrylic latex from Home Depot. I just went in and grabbed a whole bunch of their gray, and they have like I must have 200 colors, shades of gray. And I had some paint swatches back here that I wanted to have it as close a match as I could get. So I came back and found some paint colors that matched them exactly. So the one I don't have to sit down and try and do a color match every time I build a new structure. A quarter of the stuff is going to last me the rest of my life. Now, for grays, you can go to an automotive store and get automotive paints because they have a huge range of gray scales. We could probably get to fit. They're solvent based, and you don't have to do anything special. But an acrylic paint will not stick to these 3D printed materials. They just peel right off. So this was initially primed with a Krytox, and then you can stick the acrylic paints will stick very nicely to that Krytox primer. So there you go. That's the story for tonight. And next week we'll get into the details of how you spray paint these things. I just brush painted this because it's a small structure. I just brush painted it for tonight's presentation. But the larger structures are going to have to be spray painted, and we'll get into how to do that hopefully next week.
Earl,
Okay, that's it for that. Oh, yeah, shoot.
I have a question. What do you use for filler on your 3D part
For what?
before you paint it? If you have a coal or something, you want to fill it, what do you use?
I'll just use what they call spot repair material for automotive finishing.
Okay.
Comes in a tube. 3M makes it. You just trowel it on, scrape it off, and you might do a little scrape. It's easy to sand and scrape to make it clear. Fill up any hole.
Thank you.
But these will respond to anything that is anything that's solvent based will stick to these plastics. But acrylics, water based stuff, forget it. They will not stick.
Anybody else have any questions for Earl? Earl, I can't thank you enough for doing this. You may get me there yet.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much. And I also appreciate, Earl, you being responsible for our banner and representing us at Timonium this weekend. I hope you have a good time. And
yeah, I have the banner. It's in the back of the truck right now.
I hope it's as successful as I believe the Amherst show was last weekend. So thank you so much for doing this.
All righty.
And now I would like to talk about the scholarship program a little bit and about what happened at Amherst last weekend for us. Dylan Lambert and Chris Corse were representing us at that show. Chris was kind enough to transport our banner and so forth and help get the booth set up. And Dylan manned the booth. I talked to Dylan earlier today, and Dylan told me that we had a lot of people that wanted to take pictures of the QR code, I think it's called, it's on our banner. And for everybody's information, the banners was designed and produced by Bob Davidson. And we're getting a lot of compliments on it, that it's easy to read, that it's clear, that they understand what it's saying. And the QR code was a great idea. Dylan told me the one thing that we should have done is had another QR code just for new tracks, because there were a lot of questions about, well, what is new tracks? And then there were other people that came by and said, oh, new tracks is here. Isn't that great? We watch the show all the time. So those comments are encouraging to me. Number one, that there are a lot of people out there that know about New Tracks and that are watching us. Even though they may not do it live, they are watching the videos and they do know that New Tracks exist. The second thing that was encouraging to me was the number of people that Dylan said he had no idea of the count, but there was a large number of people that were taking photos of the QR or whatever you do with your cell phones to get the additional information about where to go on our website for all of the detailed information about our scholarship and the application to complete. Again, from our website, you can file it electronically or you can file it by mail. And all you have to do to file it by mail is contact Bob Davidson and get his information, which is available on the website. So from what I have been told from Dylan and some other people I've talked to that attended Amherst, it was a really successful show this year. I haven't heard anybody that was dissatisfied with it. I heard that it was getting back into the same kind of a show that it was pre-pandemic. I also heard that there were a lot of smiles on an awful lot of the vendors' faces, which normally means that they sold an awful lot. And from what Dylan told me, since he did not have his own booth there this year, based on his experience with talking to some of the other vendors, he plans to be a vendor next year and have his own booth. So for the next show, we are going to need somebody to replace Dylan to man our booth at the next Amherst show next year. This week, we're going to be at Timonium. And Earl Hackett is the one that's going to be representing us. If anybody else is going to Timonium and has a little time to relieve Earl, I'm sure he'd appreciate that. And you'll be able to find it fairly easily because of our banner. Our banner is a 7-foot by 3-foot banner. And it's got all the information that really anybody needs. But we also have pass out flyers that you can give out and other information available about the scholarship and about New Tracks. So based on what I've heard about the Amherst show itself and from Dylan about the reception that our booth was getting, I'm really encouraged that we are getting the message out to potential applicants to apply for our scholarship. The applications for our scholarship have to be in no later than July 1st of this year. We'll award it going into the first part of August. And we hope that we get a lot of entries. We've had one entry so far. And that doesn't disappoint me because we've really only basically started trying to get the word out. And this is the first major train show that we've been at. We're going to be at many other train shows throughout the summer and going into the late June, early part of July. So it encourages me that the people are at least asking questions and trying to get additional information or wanting to be able to take a photo of the QR code so that they can go to our website for more information in the future. Did anybody who's on the call right now go to Amherst? Did you see our booth at all? Did you have any comments about your experience at Amherst this year?
Yeah, I can't take any credit for setting it up. Dylan did all the setup on his own, and I'll tell you, he did a fantastic job. He got a TV out there. He downloaded a bunch of videos. He showed them. He had a little module set up. He did it all on his own. He did a great job.
Well, I appreciate you lugging the banner up there for us, Chris, and being available. How did you do at the show? Were you successful?
Yeah, did pretty well. Saturday was really busy. I actually had a line. I couldn't believe it. And although Sunday was more relaxed, and it wasn't quite as busy. The morning was kind of slow, and then it just completely slacked off in the afternoon. But all in all, everything considered, I mean, yeah, I would have rather had maybe some of those Saturday people on Sunday to kind of even it out. But it was actually a good time to network because I talked with a ton of people, both customers and other vendors. My gosh, I talked with Brian Bollinger, who you should try to get on the show. He's really interesting. I spent an hour with Bruce Nickerson. Bruce is a great guy. If you haven't had, well, he's been on the show, he's done a build along, but I talked with Len from Bar Mills. I've talked with a ton of different people. The people from White River Productions showed up. It was just a good day for networking, but it would have been nice to kind of even it out and have a little more sales on Sunday, but hey, I'll take it. It was a good show.
Well, Saturday must have been something with a line waiting for you to service them.
Yeah. I was, I called up my wife. I said, you need to get here because I'm busy.
What about the other vendors? Were they having a good time too? I mean, was
yeah.
sales good? I mean,
yep. Yeah. I think there was 20,000 people there. I heard.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
So, yeah, it was unreal. I mean, you had, just the locomotive manufacturers, you had Atlas. I think Bowser was there. Athearn was there. Broadway Limited, Lionel. I mean, when are you ever going to see just that many locomotive manufacturers? And Dylan was really interested in what was it, KM models or something like that. And he's like, wait a minute, I had a vacation plan, but now I'm going to go see these guys. So
well, he was really excited about taking his having a booth there next year because he thinks that there's a real opportunity for him there.
Yeah, I did hear because Dylan does ON30 stuff, and I heard a lot of comments about, because I do have some ON30 stuff, and they were saying how basically it's an untapped market.
That's what I was hearing from. That's what people were telling Dylan too. Listen, do you have Brian Bollinger's contact information? Do you have an email or anything you could send?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you
As a
do,
matter of fact, I'll publicly thank him because he hooked me up with some of his vitro solution. So if you're out there, Brian, thank you again, and I will send you an email and thank you when I get the opportunity. But I went to purchase stuff and he just gave it to me. I was like, wow, okay, thank you.
Well, if you can send me a contact, I'll get in touch with him.
Yep.
Anybody else went to Amherst? Anybody going to Timonium this week? Okay. Well, that's our show for this evening. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope most importantly that you've learned something. And now we'd like to run our caboose section for you. And that pretty well does it. If you can volunteer a little bit of your time, we can always use some help. Doing a lot of the different jobs on our show to produce them for you each week. Just let me know. My email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. Hope you enjoyed the show. Best of modeling to you. Till next time. And that's it, guys.
Pat, you have to kill the live stream.